We're going to move right along, and we're going to move into our C-suite panel conversation. And I'm happy to bring up our panelists. We have Jodi Senese, who is the CMO of OUTFRONT, and Chris Detert, the Chief Communications Officer and the Head of Marketing for Influential. Let's hear it for them.
Thank you, Jason.
Sit with us, Jason. Be comfortable.
It's always a challenge to get on these chairs. Okay, not too high.
Great. Welcome. How you guys doing?
Good. Quite the stage here. I'm very impressed.
I know, it's amazing.
This little company, Google, they must be doing something right.
Yeah, Google got it right. Yeah, got the algorithms right.
Our panel is now a fireside.
Our panel is on Fireside. Actually started with two others, but we had some COVID exposures and some conflicts, so unfortunately, but this is just as good.
And then there were two.
Yes, and then there were two. So I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Jason Adelman. I lead up our in-house advisory and consulting practice out of Los Angeles for the West Coast. And our team is in charge of working directly with all the senior brand marketers across the Brand Innovators community. We help them identify solutions, help them with their challenges and objectives. Basically, if you heard what Ritesh said when he kicked it off, that's what I do. Ritesh is my trusted colleague. And believe it or not, as much energy as Ritesh has, we have someone on our team with even more energy that doesn't drink coffee. So I am probably more on the low-key side, which should scare all of you. And I am here with an amazing group of C-suiters. We were maybe going to think about calling the panel How to Get Promoted from the C-Suite, but then we didn't really know what to say, because how do you get promoted from the C-suite? So instead, we're going to have a lively conversation all about some things that the C-suite is really doubling down on and what's really important to them. We talk about measurement, the importance of that as it relates to both the sales cycle and retention of clients. I think we're going to talk about the creativity and content and relevance of how your individual brands are showing up in the marketplace. And also what I think it's important to talk, we talked about a little bit earlier on another panel, but where that kind of sweet spot is between sales, product, and marketing. And ultimately, I probably don't even need to have any questions because this group is so amazing that we could probably just have a conversation, but I'll have a couple prepared. But just why don't we introduce ourselves? Jodi, obviously we will start with you.
Sure.
Share a little about yourself and the company.
So I'm Jodi Senese, CMO of OUTFRONT Media. I think that photo's about 10 years old. So, you know, when I see
Mine's
people
13.
when I see people on panels,
Mine's from my bar mitzvah.
and I see their photo, I always kind of riff a little bit on the disconnect in trying to figure out who is who, because nobody really matches their photos. But I think now I'm kind of in that camp. So anyway, so CMO of OUTFRONT Media. OUTFRONT is the largest out-of-home company in North America. We connect consumers to brands while they are outside their homes. And we do this through a network of billboards, transit, and mobile ads. And we do it by leveraging what we call TLC, a purposeful mnemonic device, and double entendre. But for the purposes of how we do it, the TLC stands for technology, location, and creativity. Technology referring to our platforms, our data, and our digital assets. Location, both the scope and scale of our assets, top 50 markets, and also the importance of contextual relevance with location-based media. And creativity is just all about huge canvases, and I think we'll talk more about how we do that when we go through the discussion.
Chris.
Sure. My name's Chris Detert. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for Influential. We are the world's largest and leading influencer marketing company. The way we became that is through a lot of data, technology, and measurability. Really, the thing that broke us through more than anything is the unique ability to measure back efficacy in influencer marketing campaigns. When influencer marketing started years ago, it was the complete Wild West. You just hoped that you could get a little bit of brand recognition as a result of it and do something that the cool kids like to do. Now we can actually measure things like foot traffic into locations like McDonald's. We can measure TV tune-in lift for our clients like Amazon. And in some cases, we can actually even measure sales in stores when you're talking about grocery stores and drugstore chains. That loyalty card that you punch in at the register, that actually registers back, and I'm talking to a trade audience, you guys clearly know this kind of stuff, but it measures back to a basket purchase. And we can measure whether somebody made a basket purchase and if they saw associated social ad, and did that lead to a sale? So that sort of measurability is a game changer in our industry and has, led us to being the leader in the industry.
That's great. So I want to dive right into kind of cultural relevance. Both of your companies attacking from different directions, yet actually achieving the same kind of objective. Socially, you guys at Influential are at the forefront of, having your finger on the pulse of pop culture, moving the needle through the social sphere. But now also at OUTFRONT, in a typically more traditional advertising format, which was outdoor advertising, has evolved significantly over the last few years. And now you're starting to see relevance of where the consumer is, their lifestyle is intersecting with what the brand's objectives are, and sometimes now where the social world comes into the amplification of those campaigns. When we talked in advance of this, that was something that was super fascinating for me, and I'd like you to share a little bit about that.
Sure. I think we're kind of at a perfect storm right now, a convergence of two behaviors. One is consumers. They want to break out, right? So everybody spent the last 2.5 years or so not doing things. And the minute the all clear whistle blew, everybody was back in the out-of-home space, just, doing concerts, going back to offices. If anybody came down on the subway today, you will be in agreement that the subway is, fully engaged in moving New Yorkers around the city again. And 2 years ago, it certainly didn't look like that. Brands are trying to break through. So lots of digital fatigue, privacy issues, fraud, all the things we read about daily in the trades and also in just major news outlets. So when you look at consumers trying to break out and brands trying to break through, they're kind of meeting one another in the out-of-home space. And I think it's been a really pivotal moment for us. I think what you're referring to is the fact that, and I'm going to quote Rashad Tabakawala, he's become a good friend and he says some very smart things, out-of-home is the most Instagrammable of all media formats. And simply what that means is when people are out and about with their phones. I mean, remember, 10 years ago or 11 years ago, we weren't walking around holding a camera everywhere we went. And now through our phones, we simply are. And if we see something that's interesting, we see something that we relate to, we are just simply taking pictures of it and sharing it on our own personal channels. And because of that, there's a huge amplification aspect in out-of-home that just didn't exist, before 2012 or so.
Yeah, and I've got to imagine with like QR codes now, that takes it to a whole different level. Like you hold it up to just take a picture, and all of a sudden you get this information downloaded.
It's funny that you say that, because pre-COVID, we tried to add QR codes to our advertisers' dwell time posters. When I say dwell time, it's a display where they can have an intimate opportunity to stand in front of like a subway two-sheet, a bus shelter, that kind of thing. And they just weren't buying it. Nobody quite understood how to use it. And now you can't go to a restaurant and order a meal unless you know how to download a QR code. So we've seen a huge spike in that.
I'd like to actually double click on that a little bit because, to get a little bit further down into the advances within your space, where creativity comes in, and how you guys are actually using that as a selling proposition for new clients that makes you guys unique, which gets into where does marketing and sales come together, that you're paddling in the same direction, talking about not just your specific features that you guys offer as a potential partner, but what makes you guys super unique. And I think that creativity where it blends in that social is something that I think is the next generation of out-of-home.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jason. I think, when I referenced TLC, the C is creativity. And if I wasn't looking for a memorable way for our sales teams to recite that, I would definitely start with the C, because creativity is our main pillar. Huge assets in real life. If we don't nail the creative, we don't really nail the campaign. What I like to say is, if the creative sucks, the data won't matter. It just simply will not resonate if it's not right. So in the out-of-home space, and just sidebar, this is my 42nd year in the out-of-home space. So I have a lot of institutional knowledge and legacy perspective of what it used to look like. But for decades, the out-of-home companies would employ a bunch of creatives, and they would sit somewhere in the back of the office, and it was kind of like a necessary service. You know, we were up against radio, spot television, and local newspaper back then, and those guys all had people who could service the local clients with, you know, homemade productions for TV and classified ads and that kind of thing. So we needed to sit in that same service bucket as them. And, you know, the stuff was kind of shit, didn't look really good. You had some beleaguered creative who had been there 40 years. Everything he churned out looked the same. He loved the fonts that he loved, and every time it was a lawyer, he had, you know, pretty much the same kind of ad. 7 years ago, we hired a new guy who convinced me that he could change the game. And we put, you know, our faith in him, and we did it brick by brick by brick. I'll give him a shout out. His name is Eddie Hurdy. He's our VP of Creative, and he told me that we could create a agency within our company that could go out to local, regional, and national clients and build full-out campaigns on par with local agencies. And over the last 7 years, we built it. It's 50 people strong. It's award-winning. And we've had some pretty major brands ask us to be their official out-of-home AOR. And it's just been tremendous. The part where I think we maybe converge is a couple of years ago, we added another funnel to that creative practice, and it's called X Labs. And it's a digital innovation lab. And we're doing a lot of super interesting stuff like spatial, which you guys probably like a lot as an influencer company. It's those 3D installations that you see at places like Times Square. We have one, I'm not sure if it posts today or tomorrow, so if it's tomorrow, I better not say what it is. But two major brands, one a retail and one a beverage. And what it essentially does is it kind of takes the metaverse and puts it in real life.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, with the spatial technology, it's amazing because we have the ability to track back to that. So the convergence of being able to use influencer marketing in your space. I remember, like, 10 years ago, it was like, how do we actually intersect the digital world or the billboard world with what we're doing? But now you can drive people to locations and actually create measurable results. Yeah.
And there's a fluidity between offline and online. We saw it today. Kate Spade just launched what we call a full wrap subway car in Grand Central. It's that shuttle that goes relentlessly back and forth between Penn Station or Port Authority and Times Square. And suddenly it's all over TikTok with their influencers kind of marching through the turnstiles, getting on the train. So the amplification of that single car, that 3-train car, suddenly, being seen by all the fashion watchers is a huge amplification moment.
Yeah, and also not a bad week to be doing it in New York Fashion Week.
I don't think that was a mistake.
Yeah.
The takeaway that I get for this audience is full of trade marketers, marketing, business development executives from amazing advertising solutions and different types of vendor partners, is that even in a traditionally
don't say it.
in a channel that has traditionally been pretty static, let's just say, you've been able to pivot your offering in a very highly creative, highly insights-driven way that now makes,
yes.
And I think that's important no matter what your technology is, what company you work at. There's always ways to innovate your offerings and then to be able to translate that message through your sales organizations into your relationships with new partners and to retain and re-up the scope of existing partners. So I think it's really great that you're able to share that. As it relates to your side of the business, you guys are often taking the cues of the influencers that you work with to help influence, no pun intended, your B2B strategies of influential as a company. So I'd like you to try to share a little bit about how you take that as head of communications and marketing for your company, adopting some of those channels that influencers are using to then help amplify your message. So when it is the right time for partners to come and seek out a company like Influential, you guys are relevant and you're top of mind and you're in that consideration set?
Yeah, we're really fortunate in the fact that we are a content factory. We don't actually create any content ourselves. We have this amazing network of over 3 million influencers who create that for us constantly, day in and day out, for the hundreds of campaigns that we're running concurrently. And with that, we have the amazing ability to pull all of that together and create these really, really effective sizzle reels. And if you look at like a really cool influencer on your Instagram or on TikTok, and then you combine that with a brand, you get something really magical. And we're able to take that and distill that down into a minute-long sizzle reel and use that on all the major social platforms. And when we're doing that on an Instagram, for example, we're doing that for dual-fold purpose. For one, we want all of our brand clients to see that and go, wow, that's the art of the possible. That's super cool. We want to do that for ourselves. On the other end, we're constantly, even though we have 3 million influencers, we constantly want to continue to grow that pool. Every single day, influencers come into the system. And so by showing them, wow, that's actually something I could aspire to be, I need to reach out to Influential. It works in so many great ways. And then if you're thinking about it just from like the LinkedIn perspective, then you're going straight B2B. And we constantly, my brother and I, every single day try to post something. And the whole thought process is if we're constantly coming up on the feed, if people are always seeing us, they're like, wow, those guys are everywhere. They're doing everything you could possibly think of. So it's really that repetition and just being in everybody's feed so that it just seems like you guys are never not doing cool stuff.
And I think that we're going to end up working together because we do work with a social influencer platform. One of the things that we see a lot are certain brands like Calvin Klein. Every time they post every 2 weeks, they have their model in front of the big Soho wall, sharing it on the feed. Hulu for all their talent. Amazon Books always get their authors to pose in front of it. I think that point of amplification and inserting us as the content for the social influencers, as mundane as you made billboards and out-of-home sound, it is still an absolute mom, I made it moment. We've got lots of talent that we see coming down Sunset in their car, screaming and looking at their billboard. Who is it, Val? Give me the name. P. Diddy, coming down in his car and screaming out the window, "Mom, Mom, I made it." And he points to a huge billboard with his face plastered on it. And that's just but one moment of many of those that we see. So I think it's a really cool convergent place between social influencers and the out-of-home space.
Yeah, I mean, out of home is just becoming more media rich. That's really the only difference. It used to be static billboard and hard to measure, and now everything has gone digital, or most things, if they haven't, are on their way to becoming digital, and all of that is going to track back to very measurable results. And things like influencer marketing all of a sudden are very exciting in that space.
Yeah, super cool. Can I just make a comment on
Please do.
measurability, just because Chris said it. There was a time, too, and we were kind of laughing about it outside earlier, that it's like, hey, we've got a billboard to sell. Where's your store? It's a mile away. Done. It's become way, way more sophisticated. We have a proprietary product we call Smart Scout, and we have an initiative called Powered by Audience. And 90% of brands are buying media based on audience. And we're the only guys in the proper out-of-home space who are going to these brands now and having an audience-first focus as opposed to, hey, you know what, here's your trading zone and let's put the billboard, 2 miles from the store or in this certain neighborhood. So we have a very, very keen ability to be able to understand where audiences are moving, how they're flowing, what their intersection with these assets are, and then help develop the best-in-class creative. So I think the way we like to articulate it is the art and science of out-of-home, both of them being important in equal proportions.
Yeah. One thing I want to add to that, years ago, I was the CMO of the fashion company Von Dutch, which you guys probably remember, the trucker hats or whatever. And when I was doing that, I got really lucky and I got into that position at 25 years old. And that was just like putting as much product out there on celebrities and trying to get into magazines and stuff, but nothing was measurable. Now, if you're a marketer, you're truly a technologist.
Right.
Like everything you do, you really have to get down into the data, and you've got to know all the platforms and the way that you actually use those things to create results. people aren't just happy anymore with like, oh, but I did this, it's like, but what does it mean? What did it do for you? So, that's a huge proponent of what we do, or a huge component of what we do these days.
So I want to take the next 5 minutes of the conversation before we're going to open up to questions. So definitely get ready for those. Bring it in-house a little bit, okay? There's no sweet special sauce about measuring the ROI on trade marketing, okay? Be it attending Brand Innovators events, putting yourself out there in the social sphere. But you each come from a very interesting side of the business. Now, you said you've been in the out-of-home industry for 40-something years. Yeah. Okay, you said that. I did not say that.
She was a child when she started.
Yes, and for all intents and purposes, you and your brother built a business that is in its infancy, if you think about it.
Very much so.
Okay. So how do you each approach what is attributable to your individual or your company efforts in the trade marketing space? And I know you each have your own way about it. You tend to have a little bit more of a oversight of putting a lot of emphasis on your team being out there and having cover and being able to drive those direct conversations with your guidance. And you happen to have a very specific, I'm at everything. I'm even going to wear a red leather jacket at a Brand Innovators dinner one night and a black leather jacket the next night to be memorable, which is, something
Guilty.
that's important. But I'd love to hear how you guys attribute and you measure internally, really when you come back from all your efforts, your marketing, trade marketing efforts.
So specific to trade marketing, not just general marketing. So, I think generally the way I think about it is we're giving our sales team some really good air cover. So part of my job and my team's job is building the brand. And when you call on a brand or you call on a strategy team and you say, I'm from OUTFRONT, it's really a good thing if they kind of have a clue as to what we are or who we are, because if the next sentence is, we're an out-of-home media company, it's like, oh, the billboard guys, it's kind of a commodity in their minds. I think what we've done through a lot of marketing, especially trade marketing, is built a brand that stands for something, that shows up in the right places, that has the right conversations, and has the ability to share with groups like you guys some of the things that we do, some of the things that we focus on, whether it's innovation, whether it's creative, whether it's measurement, whether it's purpose, so that ahead of any of our AEs getting in with any of the teams out there, that there's some awareness of what we stand for, and I think that's important. And it's something like this. It's showing up in Cannes on a yacht. It's, we were talking earlier, this December will be our 4th year down at Art Basel, right? It's not a media event. It's not an advertising event. It's not an out-of-home event, certainly, but it's become one of our pillar events. And it's just really cool for us to show up in unexpected places, to invite different kinds of clients to come on a different journey. Art Basel, highly creative, out-of-home, highly creative. We kind of connect those two pieces. We have really smart conversations. Last year it was all about NFTs. We gave a lot of brand marketers an education on that. So I think it's just kind of, creating a brand, standing for something, thinking differently, standing out, and then, for me, giving my awesome team, I have a team of 7 direct reports, super senior, super smart, letting them, get out there and lead too. Lots of different voices.
Yeah, you're really aiming to be memorable, and that's the key to the game, right? However you may do it, and I love that example of being at Art Basel, because you wouldn't have thought of that's where the ad tech business is, but essentially you're trying to demonstrate the value of creativity. What better place than the #1 creative, festival in all of North America? Chris, talk about your approach, because you definitely, I think, see the value of upper funnel brand, marketing of influential, and your personal brand and your brother's brand as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I jokingly call myself the king of the top of the funnel, and I really do not enjoy the middle or lower funnel activity. Luckily, I have amazing team behind me that supports all of that. But my thing is where I get like the most excited is meeting people out and doing things and being at all the major tentpole moments. And like you said, I mean, if it wasn't, like still kind of summery weather, I'd probably be in some bright leather jacket. So you guys get the, the lighter one. But my thing has been to take this on the road. And I met Mark Sternberg here with Brand Innovators in 2015. And I was blown away. I went to a CES event as my first event, and I was like, wow, this is something special. And so what I've done is just doubled down every single year on my spend with Brand Innovators and become very close friends with this whole team. And now I see it as a family, and I want to be everywhere that they are. And I probably am, and maybe even more so. So I want to be at all these events, and there's so much that you can gain from this community. Obviously, this kind of stuff right here, you learn so much when you're listening to brand leading speakers, and then there's the lunchtime and those breaks. Those are critical moments. If you're new to this community, where you have to go and grab people, you have to go and be a little braver than you might otherwise be. If I see a lot of people, or I've talked to people over the years who have come to me and said, I didn't really get much out of that. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, you must be shy or not like talking to people. I really have the best time, especially at the nighttime dinners and the social activities. Have a drink in hand, you're enjoying your time with people, and really that is where you just have a fun moment with somebody, and you know that you want business from them, but you're just there to have fun, and then you know that you can go later on and shoot them an email, talk about the great time you had, and all of a sudden a door is open. And so my brother and I and our head of biz dev have really created a system where we're constantly keeping running lists of this. We keep it in Salesforce, and we're always making sure that we hit those touch points and that we follow back up with people, and that we, sometimes just ping pong it. If we don't get like a great engagement that first time that we talk to them, we know that there's like another event coming like 2 or 3 months down the road. And then, sometimes this is as simple as the email is, are you going to so-and-so? Literally that, no pitch, no nothing. And you wouldn't believe how effective that is, because if you're just asking if they're going to go do the fun thing that you're doing, that will sometimes break through in the greatest way, versus like if you're like pitchy and whatever, they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, and Jordan from Roku was talking about the investment in the trade is a long leash for them. 12 to 24 months sometimes for these things to pay off. With the short amount of time we have, I want to talk about something. You guys are in a very privileged position that you're the leadership of your companies. And that helps you decide what kind of causes that are super important for you as an organization, for your organization's brand, but also your employees. And I know there's two specifically, FarmLink and Color of Change, that you are involved with, and I wanted to see if you wanted to share a little bit with the reason you guys make investments in time and resources into these partnerships.
Yeah, I'll just raise that just a bit. Just like all media, At Home always donated to causes, national causes, and especially local ones. We're very community-based. So although we have a national footprint, we do exist in hyper-local markets. There are billboards. We work with real estate companies and that kind of thing. So we've always been very receptive to donating space, kind of somewhat randomly. A couple of years ago, I'm going to say going back 3 years, we thought, let's harness some of this activity. And I think it was right after the murder of George Floyd, yeah. I think that was like the aha moment for me. And we went out to our teams and we said, hey, what do you guys care about? We've got 2,200 employees. Like what is on your radar of what you care about? And the two most often repeated things were food insecurity and social injustice. So then we got our comms team to go out and try to partner with best in class, really, really good organizations. We vetted through a lot of them. And to Jason's point, the two that we ended up partnering with, Color of Change and FarmLink, and we went deep. We met the CEOs, we met the CMOs, we met their marketing teams, we created their campaign, we found locations, and it's been ongoing. This summer, we extended both of them. We extended social injustice. We added 100 Black men. Actually, we started that in February with Black History Month, and we added No Kid Hungry this summer. So I think it's not just about being random. I think it's really about talking to your organization and reflecting what they care about.
Being intentional. I mean, that's
being completely intentional, and then going deep. Be meaningful. So that's kind of been it's kind of been a nice internal thing, and it's kind of spread amongst our employee resource groups, and we do other things connected to that now. Just one quick example. For Juneteenth this year, we wanted to invite somebody, as we usually do, to speak to our teams and our clients virtually. So it's not a sales pitch, it's not asking for anything, it's just a really nice conversation around an important day. And one of our team members, not a marketing person, actually the executive assistant to our CFO, said, why don't we get Opal Lee? And, you know, I'm going to admit, I didn't know who that was when she first said it. And I quickly learned that Opal Lee is considered the grandmother of Juneteenth. She was sitting next to Biden when he signed the executive order, and she had been working on this for years and years and years. And we invited Opal Lee to a 45-minute virtual session, and this woman, Laura, who is our EA to our CFO, moderated it, and it was one of the most beautiful sessions that you could imagine. And it was open to our clients, to our employees, to our clients' families, to our employees' families, and it was just great content and just, you know, a really great illustration of everybody coming together.
That's great. We're going to go to questions now. So if anybody has any questions, please, you can feel free to use the microphones in the corner. Make sure you give your name. And before we do that, I would say for all of you trade marketers, business development, marketing executives, you want to be memorable, right? Not only does your company need to be memorable, but you personally need to be memorable. So I'm going to say one thing that hopefully you'll remember me about, and then I didn't prep you guys on this, but I'm going to flow to the two of you. So I'm going to start. So hopefully what you will remember me for is that I have the claim to fame to actually being one of the drivers in President Clinton's motorcade and actually getting into an accident on camera in the motorcade. You'll never forget me.
Should we do this as 2 truths and a lie?
That is a truth.
Because I could do a lie.
Chris, go ahead while she thinks.
Well, I will tell you that I might be the best karaoke singer in this room. So
Okay.
I often invite clients out. I used to be a rock singer back in like my younger days, and it's a really fun way to make people go, "What?"
What's your favorite venue?
My
New York City.
So I go all throughout Koreatown. There's not one. I'm agnostic.
What's your go-to song?
Dream On,
Do you want to,
Aerosmith.
want to just end with that?
You'd have to get me drunk.
Do you want to share? Remember what your...
I'll share something a little bit worky. So what I like to tell, especially my young team, is that I started in the advertising business in 1981, and that the environment was more akin to what you see when you watch Mad Men than it is to the digital era and everything that you see today with HR departments and the like. And I'm just going to end it right there.
Questions from the audience? Well, this was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you,
We
Jason.
got through most of it.
We did it.
Thank you for being here, and appreciate your partnership with Brand Innovators. And make sure you are all individually memorable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.